Hello and welcome to today's video. My name is Jeannie and today I'm going to be talking about the self-projected authority. I had already planned on creating this video, but it was going to be more of like a PowerPoint type of presentation where you didn't really see my face. But I decided to go with like the format I've been using recently where it's just my face. It's like we're having a conversation and I'm sharing this information from like a foundational level of like, this is what I've read, this is how like I've been taught this information, and I'm going to also like give it a little twist because it's going to include like my personal perspective as someone who has a self-projected authority. I had been putting off on doing this video for a while, and today like I really felt inspired and moved to go ahead and create the video now because I had a coaching call this morning and I feel, I don't know, I started to notice a pattern like with a lot of the coaching containers I've been in. There hasn't quite been enough space for me to be able to speak things out the way that I need to in order to tap into that inner knowing. So I wanted to create this video for specifically if you are also a fellow self-projected projector and you're new to human design and you're kind of like looking for guidance and then wanting to learn more on how to tap into your intuition. This video can also be for like coaches. If you have clients who are self-projected projectors, I really hope that, you know, me sharing my experience is going to help you really provide a space for your self-projected projector clients. Because like for me, like it can be really frustrating to not be able to tap into that inner knowing because the space isn't quite there, and this is an authority that one can be quite challenging for us who have this authority to understand. So if it's kind of like challenging for us to understand it until we start getting the hang of it, imagine how much more challenging it could be for someone who's got a different authority, and especially there like any authority that comes higher up on the scale. I don't want to use the word hierarchy because normally within human design the way they teach is like there's a hierarchy of authorities, and this creates in a lot of people of like, oh, okay, well, emotional authorities are better than like self-projected authorities, and that's not what that means at all. Instead, like if your mind is coming that hierarchy of like one is better than the other, I would invite you to look at it differently and look at as hierarchy not as a question of like what's better or more important. It's just an order. Okay, so it's an order, and think of it as like a process of elimination. If your solar plexus isn't defined, okay, we eliminate the possibility of it being an emotional authority, and then it moves into being like a sacral authority, and it's a process of elimination until you get to your authority. So keep that in mind, because I do find that that's something that a lot of people feel like, oh, my authority is inferior to others, and that's not the vibe at all. Okay. This video, I hope, will also help you, even if you're not a self-projected authority, if you have a loved one, especially a child, who is a self-projected projector. It's my intention that this will help you understand them better and be able to support them in the way that they need to be supported. From personal experience, I can tell you, like, it's so easy to slip into the not self theme of bitterness when you don't feel heard and you don't feel like you have that space to be able to process things that are just kind of like bubbling to come out, and it's so easy to suppress that if you don't have a safe, supportive space to express what wants to come out of you. I already mentioned like the reason like behind like my personal experience in the coaching world, where as we're going to go into the information, you're going to see how this applies more of, like, after today I realized how important it is to not give my power away, to trust my inner knowing. And again, like the coach I worked with has an emotional authority, and many times it can be very easy to filter our advice and our coaching through our experience, and that's, you know, no fault to this person that I worked with today, and they're not the only one. Because I've experienced this several times, so this is another reason why I wanted to create this video. Yeah, we're gonna talk about that a little later in the video. So many things that, like, I want to say. That's why I feel like let's slow down. Everything that needs to be said, wants to be said, will be said. Okay, so when we're dealing with a self-projected authority, this authority originates out of the G center and it connects to the throat center through one of 4 channels. Personally, mine connects through the channel of, hold on, I was gonna write this down and I forgot. Thankfully, I did bring out my chart. Okay, mine connects through the channel of inspiration, which is the 8-1. However, that channel for me is at an unconscious level. I always include this before my videos in the intro, and I forgot. So just so that you have a frame of reference of what my chart looks like. Again, this is from my perspective. I'm a 6-2 self-projected projector. I have my head, ajna, throat, and G center defined, and they're all defined straight down the middle, which is pure individual circuitry. And when you have a lot of individual circuitry, you're really here to do things your own way. So I tend to be a little bit of a rebel when it comes to human design. I don't like to stick to a lot of, like, the traditional stuff. I like to add twist to things, so keep that in mind. If you're more of, like, I like the traditional stuff and I don't like to deviate from what source says, then, you know, just, you might not resonate. Take what serves you and leave what doesn't. Okay, the key with this authority is to listen to what you say. Whatever you need to know is in what you say. And because we have our G center defined, we have a very powerful voice of identity that speaks for us in reaction to an invitation. Our truth is always expressed through the core of our identity. If there is no truth for us, there is no success for us. When we are invited to talk, we want to listen to what we say, and we don't want to try to figure out mentally what we're going to say. We want to simply listen to and trust our own voice at the moment. So what this could look like is, like, kind of like filtering what you want to say. This is why having, like, a safe space to be able to just, whatever comes out, you know, can the person hold it? Because we don't want to try to figure out, okay, well, what is it that I'm going to say? It's going to be a very spontaneous process. There are no motors present in this type of authority, so we can become totally lost in the conditioning through our open centers. When we have a self-projected authority, we do have a lot of openness in our charts, and it can be very easy for us to ignore our own voice in the moment and thus not fulfill what is to be uniquely ours. So as we're going to go deeper into this in this video, we're going to talk a lot about, like, really owning the power of our voice. We're designed to be guided in our decisions by what makes us feel like us and what brings us enjoyment and pleasure. So there's definitely a huge concept of self, like me. And again, there can be a lot of conditioning around this, especially if we're taught to put others before ourselves, and that could mistakenly be translated in our mind as like I don't matter. I know that's what happened in my case, where like my needs don't matter, my needs aren't as important, and there was a lot of suppression of like what I wanted, where I wanted to go, what I wanted to do. And I would also invite you to take a look at not just your chart, like your overall chart, because like your chart is a combination of your conscious and unconscious design. When I took a look at mine from a like separated, like from a conscious and unconscious way, I saw that I was a self-projected projector from at an unconscious level, and at a conscious level I was more, my chart looked, it was a mental projector. So also keep that in mind as we go a little bit deeper into this. I'm going to be giving you the information for both, again, because this is coming from my perspective. If you find that you're a self-projected projector from both your conscious and unconscious, well, you might resonate more with just the self-projected projector information. But again, I feel like I didn't quite grasp the authority concept until I looked into the strategy, the authority for mental projectors. So I'm just gonna put that out there. My notes are a little bit all over the place, I feel, for like what I normally do, so we're just gonna go for it. And right now I'm going to talk about specifically what relates to mental projectors. If you feel like this doesn't apply to you, that's okay. For mental projectors, their authority, when dealing with their authority, you receive guidance from sensory information about the environment through your open centers. So again, I found that I really resonated with this because I have a lot of open centers. If I'm looking purely from like an unconscious level and a conscious level, there's even more openness because I only have 2 centers defined in each of those. When combined, that's when I have 4 centers defined. So I was finding that like at an unconscious level, I was processing a lot of information, picking up on a lot of information from my environment, and I wasn't aware of it. So if the environment feels wrong, the people you're with or ideas exchanged and bargains made there will not be right either. So just pay attention to see if like your environment plays a factor into your decision-making process. Question you want to ask yourself, is this environment correct for me? Because I notice that sometimes if I'm in an environment where it doesn't feel safe or there's a lot going on, I tend to like tune into that, even if it's at an unconscious level, and I feel uneasy, where it's like I feel like I can't really express safely what it is that I want to say. So for example, if it's a public place, I find public places can be like, for me, they feel like really buzzing with a lot of energy. So I tend to look for small pockets of space where there's not a lot of traffic, there's not a lot of people. I also find that I can process differently when I'm like inside versus outside in nature. So again, like learn to tune in, create awareness, like no pressure, just gently start creating awareness of like where do you feel like you can tap more into your inner knowing. For mental projectors, be aware of the strength of your mind and its tendency to intervene in decision making. When making a decision about what the correct environment is for you, it's healthy and beneficial to physically visit the environments in question and notice and recognize within your body how they feel to you. Again, environment. How does this environment feel to you? Because a lot of it can be like I said, at an unconscious level. Bringing awareness to this can really help you. You're going to feel your body be able to relax more in certain environments versus others. You mustn't be rushed into making decisions. It's a slow, deliberate, meticulous, and measured process. It weighs and balances, thoroughly researches, checks, and double checks before reaching any sort of conclusion. Later on, I'm going to go into like how this resonated with me and like how I tap into like which method or which way I feel like I need to lean more into in order to process what I need to process. Kind of should have mentioned this in the beginning, but like I said, my notes are a little all over the place. When we're talking about human design authority, there are 9 centers in the human design system, and each of these centers acts as an energetic voice. When you're trying to make a decision, all of these centers will try and talk to you. The inner authority is the voice that's in charge of decisions for you. It's the authority that determines the way you best make decisions. So learning about our authority will help us get out of our head and make intuitive and heart-centered choices that are right for us. Self-projected projectors. I think they're a small group. We make up about 2.58% of the population. If the numbers are correct, it's about 13% within projectors, so it's a little bit higher within projectors, but again, I feel like 2.5% is still relatively small. There can be a lot of conditioning and feeling misunderstood. There's a quote by Ra that says, "You're here to trust your spontaneous utterances." And it's literally like that many times where we have to learn to trust that spontaneous thing that comes out of our mouth. With the self-projected authority, we're here to speak our truth. This is why we have a defined third center. We're here to speak our identity. This is why we have a defined G center. So it's important to listen to our voice in communication when we're communicating. Creating a clean and clear channel from your G center, which is your truth, to your throat center, which is your voice, will result in more success, recognition, and feeling fulfilled. So I would recommend doing some deconditioning work around your G center and your throat center to really create a clear, clean channel for your so that it's easier for you to tap into your inner authority. So for self-projected projectors, communication is very, very important for us. Our decision-making process originates in our G center because it's our truth and identity, and they speak through our voice, and this is why it's important for us to listen to it. Shadows to look out for to avoid feeling confused and being taken away from our life's purpose are lying, which can result from pressure and fear. Lying. Feeling that pressure of like, I have to answer this quickly, or fear of like, can I really express what I need to express? Like, can this person hold what needs to come out of my mouth? Withholding your truth, which tends to deal with like lack of courage. This is definitely an authority where we're going to need a lot of courage. And not speaking our truth, which deals with self-worthiness components, and again, courage. For when we're making big decisions, it's going to be important for us to talk things out with someone we trust, especially, like I said, if it's a big invitation or a big decision. If you don't have someone that you feel like you can trust, especially like maybe you're new to human design. For me personally, my person was my mom, and she passed away, and I haven't quite found someone like her who can hold that space for me unconditionally. I'm still searching. So I've really leaned into doing voice notes and recording myself talk. Sometimes I do video because I can also take note of like what's my facial expression, because I feel like I do a lot of talking with my face as well. So voice notes, videos have really helped me be able to tap into my inner knowing. Another thing you might want to try if you're, getting a feel for like who is your perfect sounding board, try different people separately. Sometimes like you can have a group of people. I know that for me that was my family. My dad passed away earlier this year, so it just feels like my group is getting smaller and smaller, which also adds to like frustration and bitterness and all that. But I do feel like for me, family again was a very safe space where I get to say anything and it was going to be okay. You didn't necessarily have to agree with it, but I was able to reach that place where I could make a decision, because I had a really supportive team around me. Projectors often have a difficult time seeing themselves, so they can't always guide themselves as easily as they can guide others. So as we're going to talk about this a little bit later on, in a way I find that when I'm talking to someone, they can mirror certain things back to me, and that's going to help me be able to see myself a little bit clearer. Yeah. Others are meant to act as sounding board, and this is something that you really want to pay attention to and grasp. Like, what does it mean to be or to have a sounding board? A sounding board. Whoever acts as your sounding board, they're not here to give you an answer, advice, or tell you what to do. Okay? They're not meant to be completely silent either. They can, and it would greatly benefit you if they ask you questions and reflect things back to you. They're there to listen. You have a very strong and powerful identity that speaks. You literally speak your truth. You just need the space to do so. And I think this is why I was have been having such a hard time with coaching, because many times the coach, like they offer me advice, or they tell me what to do, or like I go to them wanting them to tell me like, okay, this is kind of like what I've been contemplating, like what do I do? And maybe that's why I've been experiencing so much bitterness, because they're not there. They're not supposed to be there to give me an answer. And I'm not saying that their guidance hasn't helped, but I find that many times, like what they say, it'll trigger like this chain of thoughts that will lead me to my inner truth, and it'll be like completely different from like what they suggested. And my solution worked way better and quicker than what they had suggested. But again, I kind of like needed that in order to be able to have that spark that led me down to like what the answer was for me, that was inside of me. You don't want to be afraid to teach people how to be a sounding board. Okay, this is where remember how earlier I mentioned courage? I feel like as a child I didn't really talk a lot. I did talk a lot with mom, but I feel like even with her there were a lot of ways in which I held my voice back. So now where I'm looking for a sounding board, it's really like having the courage to go up to someone and say, okay, this is what I need, this is how it works, these are the mechanics, this is what I need to happen. And not coming from like a very loving space. It's not, I don't feel like it's not my intention to do that pushy or controlling. It's just like, this is what it is. This is what I need. Can you provide that for me? And also, don't be afraid to revoke someone's privilege of being your sounding board. It's a privilege for someone to provide that space for you. Think of it as like a sacred space where things are going to come out of your mouth quicker, sometimes quicker than you can possibly realize. Okay, so many times I find that like I just need to be able to say this out loud, and it could feel like it's a horrible thing to say, and I don't mean like okay, how can I explain this? I do have the channel of structuring. Again, like all my channels are individual part of individual circuitry. So I find that I've had to do a lot of work around learning about social skills and social cues. With family, I feel like I am way more open and freer. Freer, is that even a word? I can't just say whatever comes out and I'm not going to be judged. Like with my brother right now, I guess he's the closest I have to like an okay sounding board, but sometimes he's like, you can't say that to other people. So it's not that it's necessarily mean. I mean, some things can come off mean, okay, but I don't intend them that way. It's just like, okay, sometimes I feel like things need to be said, and then I can feel into them. I'm like, oh yeah, no, I don't, that's not what I wanted to say, or that's not the way I want to go. So yeah, like I've learned to find it a little bit funny, because otherwise I think I would get way more bitter. But it's definitely something that has gotten me into trouble. But it's that structuring channel, because it's like you literally blurt things out, and it's like learning to pause and really think about, you know, wait, do I want to say this? But when we're looking at a decision-making process, this is why I stress, like, it's really important to have a space where, like, no matter what comes out of my mouth doesn't necessarily mean that that's what I'm going to do. I just need to have a space where I can say this and not be judged, and like kind of feel into it. Like, for example, let's say I come from a pretty traditional conservative family, and very religious family as well. So if I were to say something like, I want to get a tattoo, it probably, like, if your family doesn't know how to be able to support you, they might, you know, you might start facing like, no, you shouldn't get a tattoo, or you can't do that, or things like that. But many times I find like I just need to be able to say like, I want to get a tattoo, and then I'll feel it. I'm like, oh no, I really don't want it. I don't really want that. I just want permission to be able to say that and see how I feel about it. So that's kind of what I mean. And not everybody is going to be a safe space for you to be able to just say stuff. And again, it doesn't necessarily mean that that's how you feel or what you think. It's just something that needs to come out so that you can feel into it. That's what it feels like to me. So I have tested a couple of people as sounding boards, and so far, like, nobody's passed the test, so I'm still like without a proper sounding board. But the point of all of this is like, don't be afraid to revoke someone's privileges if they're not being supported. Like, you can totally, as I'm going to go into a little bit in a few seconds, you know, explain to them like why you need this space. And many times for me, it's like, this isn't my final answer. Like, I will know when it's my final answer, and I'll let you know. But right now, I need this to come out of my mouth in order to get to the right decision for me. It's very important to have people who are willing to listen to you without judgments, who are patient, and who love you unconditionally, regardless of what you might say out loud. Basically what I just said in a nutshell. For me personally, this is very new that I've noticed this. When I don't feel, and this is it has to be at an unconscious level, because many times like I'll want to continue talking about this to someone who like I consider a close friend, and what will happen is that I will literally lose my voice. I won't be able to talk. Like, no matter how much I try or how much I want to, the words will not come out of my mouth. I will literally lose my voice instantly. So I've learned to take those moments to create awareness. I also notice that this happens when again, at an unconscious level, my body's picking up on the fact that the person's not really hearing me. They're not being a sounding board. So when I don't feel heard, when the space doesn't feel safe, I lose my voice and I literally can't talk. So I've really had to learn to not like tread on and like try to force my voice to come out. And I was just like, okay, I'll take a deep breath and I'll tell my body, okay, I get it. This isn't, you don't feel safe expressing your truth, either with this person or in this environment. You don't feel heard. I got it. This person is not the right person to be talking to about this. I'm going to close off the conversation and I'll either process on my own or look for someone else, and then I'll start getting my voice back. I'll also feel like a lot of bitterness if the person I'm talking to isn't the right person or the environment isn't the right environment. I'll start to feel a lot of bitterness. There'll be a lot of confusion, and I don't really reach my answer. I don't really reach that inner truth. Now, this next thing that I'm going to say, I want to say that there are other aspects of my chart that point to this making a really big thing for me, where it's individual circuitry. That's the thing that keeps on like creating all sorts of things for me. But I get really angry when I'm told what to do and I haven't asked. It really ticks me off. And again, this is relatively new to me. I want to say it's because like my G center is defined at an unconscious level, and lately, because I've been doing a lot of inner work around my G center and deconditioning, it's become much more like it's been brought to my awareness much more. So when I say like I get really angry when I feel like people are telling me what to do, it depends on the person too. If I can sense there's an underlying vibe of that they want to control me, or they're not really listening, that's where the anger and the bitterness comes up. If I feel like it's a loving person, I feel like that doesn't quite show up as strongly, but still with self-projected authority, because of that G center, it's very centered on us, on our truth. So kind of like something you could say to someone who you are thinking of using as a sounding board can sound like, hey, there's a decision I have to make, and in order for me to know whether or not it's a good choice for me, I need someone who can provide space for me to talk things out. I thought of you because I trust you and I know you're a great listener. I don't need you to give me advice or tell me what to do. It would help me if you could ask questions and reflect back to me what I say to help guide me. Are you open and available to help me? So that's kind of just something, an idea of what you can say, especially like if you're new or you're, again, trying like someone new as a sounding board. Another option, especially if you're new to this, is saying, hey, I've been learning about how I best make decisions for myself, and in order to determine whether something is correct for me or not and tap into my intuition, I really need to be able to talk things out. I need someone who can provide a safe space full of unconditional love for me to talk things out without being interrupted, judged, or shamed. I trust you, love you, and know you're a great listener. I don't need you to give me advice or tell me what to do. The right answer is already inside of me, and it will spontaneously come out as I talk it out. It would help me if you could ask questions and reflect things back to me with like what I'm saying to help guide me. This is something you could start doing for me. This is more like if you have a partner, maybe, or you know, a immediate family member, a best friend, and you kind of like want to start teaching them on how to provide this space for you. Those are just some ideas of like how you could word it. some characteristics of a great sounding board. The person's going to feel like a really safe space. There's going to be a lot of trust. It's going to feel like a really safe place, environment. This person is going to have high emotional intelligence, and this is going to really be helpful for you, because when you're talking to someone who has high emotional intelligence, it's going to avoid adding another person's conditioning to the mix, and they can remain objective, really hold that space for you. It's a person who's going to ask great questions. They're going to be an active listener, and they're not going to tell you what to do. If you're talking things out with yourself for smaller invitations or decisions, you can speak out loud, and you'll know what's true for you by noticing the words you're saying and the tone of your voice. Another really important thing you want to create awareness around is your tone of voice. For me, I've noticed, like, if I get an invitation, I've really been giving myself permission to give like an audible response, even if it's not words. Like, for example, if I get an invitation from someone I don't really know that well, I'll initially go like, which just means like I need to think about it. If it's someone that I know and that I know I feel comfortable around with, it'll be like, ooh, like, tell me more, like, I'd like to know more. If it's like learning and giving yourself permission to express these sounds like or like I don't know, or like ooh, yay, yes, like, you know, kind of like learning if your feelings had a sound, like what would that sound be, and let that come out of your mouth when you receive the invitation. And that way you'll know whether you need a little bit more time to feel into it, or whether you're like, yeah, that sounds kind of cool. I've already mentioned voice memos, but I really like voice memos because I can replay them and listen to the tone of my voice. And many times, like, I do replay them a couple of times. Okay, sometimes, like, when you're facing a decision, for me it feels like this tangled ball of yarn that as I speak, I start like pulling on the thread, and it starts like detangling, and I'm able to gain clarity by speaking things out. Okay. Another thing that might help is getting into nature, away from people. I find like I really like to go on walks. When it's something that's really been bothering me and there's like a lot of mental energy, I feel like the desire to move. So I'll walk, and sometimes like I'll just pop in my AirPods and just talk things out as I'm walking out in nature. Sometimes it'll be around the neighborhood. I haven't tried going to the park. That's also another option. You can see like how you feel when you're in a park or in a more natural environment, as opposed to like when I'm inside the house or when I'm in a commercial area. I feel like there's more of a sense of calmness, because like when we're out in nature, it really gives us an opportunity to like be in our own energy, and I find it very soothing. So you can kind of like experiment like in different environments and see how you feel. If you're talking it out with yourself, there's a lot of people who recommend journaling. I find that for me, journaling is a little bit difficult because my hands can't quite keep up with the speed of my thoughts. And again, with this authority, okay, I think it's a little bit better. So let's continue. We're talking about journaling. A really big thing within like personal development is journaling. I always had a hard time with journaling, and it wasn't until like I started diving into my authority that I realized why. You can try journaling if you feel like that helps. From my personal experience, I want to say that I still think it's a good idea to speak things out loud because our G center is heard through our voice. Okay, and again, it's the concept of spontaneous utterances that speaking is going to be faster than writing. And there's some coaches who say you shouldn't type things out because it's a form of like bypassing and all of that. If you're a self-projected projector, I want to say that doesn't really apply to us. Handwriting it can actually hold us back because, like I said, there's processing that happens like pretty quickly and spontaneously. For me personally, I find that I type quicker than I write. If you, well, I can't think of, I think pretty much everybody uses a computer nowadays. I don't know. So for me personally, I find that if you choose to write, you may miss out on those spontaneous truths that want to be expressed. So try different things, experiment, and see which one you feel like works better for you and which one helps you tap into that inner knowing much easier. Questions to ask yourself, again, because we're dealing with the G center. One of the things that I really have been finding useful is asking myself the right question. So some questions to guide you, just if you're getting started or if you're feeling a little bit stuck, maybe these can kind of help you gain momentum. Will this make me happy? Will this fulfill me? Will this give me self-expression? Again, we're dealing a lot with the self, a lot with me questions, and self-expression concepts. Am I heading in the right direction? The G center is also the center of direction. So using, questions that have to do with direction, like, is this where I want to go? Is this where I want to be heading? How does this direction feel to me? You might find that helpful. Does this make me feel like me? Does it make me feel excited or happy? Do I feel invited in and seen by this person or opportunity? If you have a direct connection from yourself to your expression, communication, so from the G center to the throat, and this makes you hypersensitive to criticism because what you're expressing or creating is coming straight from the core of who you are. So this is something that like I recently learned. I'm like, oh my gosh, like this, they should make this like sound like really include this in all the readings they do for self-projected projectors, because I was experiencing a lot of like really feeling triggered by the people I was talking to when they expressed an opinion that was contrary, no, not even contrary to mine, but when I felt like they were saying like, what you're saying is wrong, like what you're saying isn't true, those kind of comments, I was taking them so personally, and I didn't understand why until I found this information. I'm like, oh, this is why, because of that defined G center that is wanting to be expressed by communication, by speaking. You're more likely to feel attacked, criticized, or offended. I find like I don't really get offended. It's more like I feel attacked, I feel criticized, and it was because of this, because it's coming from like that, my core is that G center. And yeah, once I created awareness around this, I'm like, oh, okay, well, now I know what it feels like. And it's just that person, when I'm feeling that, it's because of the G center. So I created a lot of awareness around this where I find like I'm much less likely to be triggered by this. So yeah, I thought that was interesting. Another thing is learning about and practicing. This is the one I struggle with, like the practicing of the power of the pause. Especially when you're like in a social situation, and if there hasn't been an invitation, there is a higher probability that what may come out of your mouth is not going to be well received. So just keep that in mind. As a self-projected authority, you are designed to be guided by experiences that will make you feel like yourself and bring you joy. So this is one of the things that I've really been working on, leaning more into manifesting, like, yeah, the money, but also like experiences. And I feel like manifesting experiences come very quickly to me. So I would invite you to start playing with like certain experiences that you feel that will make you feel like yourself, or that will bring you joy, and see how much more you're able to tap into yourself and learn about yourself. And it's just gonna completely change your energy, your vibration when you do that. As a self-projected authority, you have to listen to what you say. Don't try to figure out what you're going to say. Many times for me, okay, I was saying that for me, it feels like a riff. It feels like words are coming out faster than my mind can keep up with them. But I also want to say, kind of like, take a look at your channels and see what you have defined, because that might be able to impact, or might have an impact. Many times for me, it feels like, whoa, I had no idea that was going to come out of my mouth. There's also this deep sense of self and peace that's rooted or anchored in my G center. That's kind of like what it feels like. Towards the end, I'm going to go a little more depth into this, just so I can kind of leave with that clear of like, what does it feel like. My suggestion is to clean up any conditioning around being able to trust yourself and your voice. Typically what happens, or like at least from my experience, I didn't grow up knowing that I had a powerful voice of identity, and that trusting that voice is going to help me avoid bitterness. So we really, really need to learn to trust what we say. As self-projected projectors, our deconditioning will look like us becoming aware of what we say spontaneously in response to invitations. So again, a lot of like spontaneous events. Language. Spontaneous. Let's just keep in mind. It'll be spontaneous. We also need to develop courage to trust what we say, even when it surprises us. We don't want to filter what we're saying. We just want to be able to let our G center flow. If we listen and trust what our voice tells us, our lives will be transformed and we will begin to operate correctly. Clarity for us comes in conversation, so don't feel bad for being talkative. Learn to take up space. This is one that I'm still learning to embrace, because I feel like many times within coaching containers, I feel like that pressure, like you gotta keep it short, you gotta keep it short, you gotta be intentional. So sometimes I do a lot of processing on my own, and then once I'm able to summarize what I have to say in like 2-ish, 3 minutes, that's when I'll go into like right now I'm in the mastermind, that's when I'll bring it up in the mastermind. As a self-projected authority, decision making might not be as immediate as designs with sacral or splenic authority. So sometimes you're going to need to give yourself time to talk things out, when assessing whether or not an opportunity is right for you. Sometimes, okay, I feel like for me, if it's something that has like a lot, there's more of like an emotional charge to the decision I'm facing, I lean more into needing and wanting to talk things out. So pay attention to like how emotionally charged does the decision feel, and you'll probably want to talk it out more, and you don't want to rush it. It's okay if it takes time. The truth, the answer will come out. There's no need to pressure or rush it. Very important to be yourself. You do you. Be in spaces and around people where you can be fully you and like fully seen at your core. Your authentic expression will be an inspiration for others as well as a North Star for your decision. And this is something that I'm also learning to decondition from, because there could be a real fear. Well, after all that, now you can kind of like appreciate the peace after all that loud noise. That's kind of like what it feels like to be a self-projected projector. When you're moving through something that feels like really big and there's like a lot of energy there, it's like you talk, like the blower, the lawnmower, all that. And then once you reach clarity, it's like this moment of peace, just like now. So thanks God for the lawnmower, blower, and all that. As I was saying, there could be a lot of fear around expressing our truth. I know personally I experienced a lot of rejection when I was younger. I do want to say that there's a higher probability of experiencing rejection when there is no invitation. So this is where we want to follow that waiting for an invitation, and know kind of like a way to reframe this fear is that just knowing that your authentic expression will be an inspiration for others, and it's going to be that North Star that's going to guide you. We're designed to be a little self-centered because our self-center, G-center, is defined. I do find that like many times, like I refer to myself in conversations or like examples of like my life. Other people might perceive that as a little self-centered, but given that the G-center is defined, it's part of our design. It's normal. Self-satisfaction and personal fulfillment alone is a valid basis for a decision as a self-projected projector. And our decisions should bring us happiness and joy. This last bit, this is my last slide. Let's see, yeah. Again, it pertains more if you're like a mental projector. So I just encourage you to take a look at your chart, whether you're a projector at an unconscious or conscious level, and see if this resonates. If it doesn't, that's okay, don't use it. But for me, again, environment definitely tends to be more important for mental projectors, but I found it, like I resonated with a lot of learning about their authority, especially when we have a lot of open centers. I find that I'm very sensitive to the energy around me, not just people, but environments. And because we're projectors and how our energetic field works, how our aura works, is that it absorbs a lot of information, again, even if it's at an unconscious level. So just pay attention to like how you feel in certain environments, and you can experiment with that. Okay, so just kind of like to wrap things up. I really liked how this particular book described the self-authority. It describes it described it as a subtle inner guidance, as delicate as a butterfly's touch in the way it alerts you, and yet it's as robust as an ox in its execution, because it's all about the inner knowing. Your decision-making process is rooted in a knowing which only you can begin to comprehend. It can be the most difficult authority to grasp until you get the hang of recognizing its signals, accuracy, and rightness. It arrives gently and sometimes unannounced as a realization that should not be suppressed. It's an innate sense of knowing. It just knows what is right and what is wrong in uniquely personal terms. So this is kind of like also a big reason why I wanted to do this video now, because when you're like in the coaching industry, or when you're looking for a coach, again, the majority of the population has a defined emotional solar plexus. They are emotional authorities. If you take a look at the body graph, I find there's a correlation with like which centers you have defined more towards the bottom of the chart. It's easier to tap into your body, like the lower part of your body. And again, it's kind of, you have to have a lot of awareness and be really objective as a coach in order to not bring your perspective, which in itself it's kind of like hard to do, because like, you know, we're human beings. But what I want to say is that in a lot of the coaching programs that I purchased, or like containers, they would always describe it like as a full body yes, and feeling it in your gut and things like that, and I never really resonated, and I took that to mean like I must be doing something wrong. I wasn't doing anything wrong. I'm just wired differently. I'm going to feel it, not necessarily so much in my gut. Okay, and this is something that, again, not a lot of people are going to understand, because the self-projected authority is 2.5% of the population. So this is why I want you to really create awareness around this, and not let like how other coaches describe like how they feel it in your body kind of like discourage you, because that's what I was experiencing. I was feeling like really discouraged. I was feeling like I wasn't really getting anywhere. But the key is, like, if you're gonna feel it in your body, bring your attention to your sternum, which is like right here. Okay, it's kind of like in the center of your rib cage. I thought I wrote it down. And for me, I call this my heart space. So I feel it here. And for me, it feels like when I've reached that inner knowing, it feels like the information I just read, like it feels gentle, it feels subtle, but it feels deep, and it feels potent, and it feels powerful, and it feels solid. It kind of like, it feels like this kind of like an anchor, like an anchor gets dropped, and there's clarity, there's this sense of peace. But again, like I've never felt it below my sternum before, like below here. I can't say that I have. So that's okay. Like, learn to trust that feeling. Just start tapping into this feeling right here that you get in the center of your chest. And sometimes, like, I smile. Like, I can't help to smile when I know that, like, I've reached the right decision for me that I can't explain. I have no proof that this is going to work, but it's this inner knowing. And this is where I would invite you to bring in your cognition. So I have a taste cognition. Now, I am going to do, I think, a separate video on cognition, but I do want to include this. Just because cognition, that's our strongest sense. For me, it's taste. However, I feel like many times the human design community is like too focused on like only focus on taste. But for me, I find that I also have a really strong sense of smell, but it isn't so much like a physical nose smell. It's more of like a very intuitive, unconscious way of using my sense of smell that has to do with like the energetic field of other people and pheromones, picking up on like smells that can't be smelled type of thing. And this for me personally comes from Gene Key 44, gate 44. So learn to trust yourself. I'll ask myself, does this decision taste sweet to me? Does this decision taste bitter to me? How does this smell to me? Does this smell pleasant? Does this smell like, ugh, like, no, that's not the way I want to go? Like I think I mentioned this before, I feel like my face talks for me a lot, so, you know, pay attention, like the faces you make, see if that helps guide you. In your vision, like when you think of where you want to go, because the G Center also has to do with direction, like can you close your eyes? And even if you don't have like, well, when you have inner vision, you tend to have like you can really tap into like what that looks like for you. What does that feel like? Does your face feel like smiling, or do you feel like, oh no, like it's a drag? What's another one? Taste, smell, hearing. Is hearing one of them? I should have Googled this before. I tend to focus more on taste, but I still bring in some of my other senses when I want to gain some more clarity. So yeah, what it feels like more is that innate sense of knowing. You just know what's right. That physical sensation that you're going to feel in your body is more likely going to come from here, from your sternum. So the key is to practice recognizing it and to learn to trust it implicitly. Like learn to trust yourself. That's another one, a really big one that I've been moving through, learning to trust myself. And many times this is something I really related to. Like I will find myself just saying, I just know it. Like I can't explain, I can't tell you how I know, I just know this. Again, channels come into play with this, but just to, feel into that and see if you find yourself saying, I just know. And the key is to not be dissuaded from this knowing because of how it comes, because it's kind of something that doesn't really have an explanation. Just know that it is, also know that it is susceptible to being bulldozed by emotions, gut responses, intuitions, and willpower of others. This is kind of like what I was saying, where the majority of the population is an emotional authority. So because this can be one of the most difficult authorities to grasp, they're not going to understand what it feels like to just know. And I want to say, like, part of me wants to say it's kind of like, you know how they say, like, you're not supposed to make decisions from your head? I don't know if I want to say it like that. I disagree with that, but in a way, like if I had to describe it into words, it kind of feels like, that ball of yarn here. But so it starts in the head, and because, it's like this inner knowing, I feel like I have the connection to, like, this decision is kind of coming from that inner knowing. But again, like, tune in to see if you feel it here in the center of your chest. Once you're able to kind of, like, it just feels like, again, like if the ship's up here and it drops the anchor and the anchor lands here on my sternum, that's when I know that that's the right thing for me. So when we're, surrounded, being that we're like a small group of people, we're surrounded by these other authorities, which like more powerful or more, not powerful. They're It's literally that sense of like they're riding bulldozers. And think of like your inner knowing is like that butterfly. And think of like, you know, when you look at a bulldozer and when you look at a butterfly, it's kind of like a different sensation. Like a bulldozer is going to run things down. A butterfly is gentle, it's delicate, it's beautiful, it's powerful, you know, even though it's so tiny, like its beauty can like really blow you away. And I just find myself like mesmerized by seeing how butterflies fly and all that. But you know, all these other authorities, it can seem as if they have greater authority than us, but we want to start to trust our inner knowing and see it as the most reliable of confidants. So it kind of feels like that inner confidant, that it's never going to be wrong. It's this inner knowing. And this authority has keynotes of leadership, and just, you know, create awareness that when you commit to something, it has to have meaning for your life, because again, we're dealing with the G center, and this is going to require you to trust in your true nature more than any other authority. So it's just practice. Like once you start creating awareness around it, it'll be easier to tap into it. The most challenging things for me have been lately that have been coming up a lot, like the courage to express myself, to take up space, to use my voice, to own, acknowledge, recognize, accept that my voice is powerful, and trust that inner knowing. Now, we've covered a lot here, right? So for me, like I said before, sometimes I feel like I need to talk things out, especially when it's something that has like a lot of emotions, a lot of emotional components to it. Sometimes the decision is pretty quick, like I'll just know, and I don't need time or space in order to think about it. Other times I'll feel like, do y'all remember how I mentioned in the beginning with like mental projectors? It feels to them, or like for them, it's not a rushed process. It's slow, deliberate, meticulous, and measured. It weighs and balances, thoroughly researches, checks, and double checks before reaching any sort of conclusion. That's what it feels like for me. It feels like if I'm facing a decision, I need more information. So like let's say it's a big one of like if I wanted to move to a different state or a different city. For me, environment, like I would need to go to that place and see how I feel in that place. Do my research. What's the, you know, what's nearby, kind of like what's the neighborhood, and like what does it feel like. So I find that I have like these three basic things that I kind of go to. It's not just one. It could either be talking it out, it can be just an inner knowing that's quick, no time required. Another is like I need more information, I need to do research, I want to talk to people that, you know, are in that or have had that experience. And it's just practice, like, and ask yourself, like, what do I feel like I need in this moment to make this decision? Do I need to talk it out? Do I need to gather more information or something like that? Or, you know, those types of questions to help guide you to what your truth, what your inner knowing is. I want to think if there's anything else. I think that's pretty much it. I hope that you guys will really be able to tap into like feeling it in your body, because for me, I think that's the thing that tripped me up for the longest time, and today I just had that realization, like I'm probably not going to feel it like in my gut, which is what a lot of people, where they feel it here. That G center, that peaceful, like this kind of feels like a sigh of relief when I've reached clarity. And many times it feels like a buzzing or like a vibrating sensation here. I have noticed that like when I'm coaching, when I'm really allowing the information to flow like from my G center to my throat to be expressed, I get this buzzing sensation all the way down to my fingertips. But again, it's located here in my arms. So I'm leaning even more into that this is what's right for me, and not to feel bad if I don't feel it, like a full body, yes. Or like for me, sometimes it feels more like this, my shoulders like will be like yes, like leaning towards yes, or like no, I'll lean back. But again, it doesn't really go past here. And for now, until I continue to experiment with this, I'm gonna be okay with that. Like that's how I feel it. I guess for me, I kept thinking like it's got to be this intense feeling, because like how they describe it, when they feel it in their gut, they feel it all over their body. Like what's wrong with me? Why don't I feel it? Really trusting that it's the subtle but delicious, sweet feeling, this inner knowing, peaceful anchor. It just feels really good. Even though it may not be intense, it feels like that butterfly, but it's powerful. How did it say it? I'm gonna write that and like revisit that really often. It's a subtle inner guidance, as delicate as a butterfly's touch in the way it alerts you, and yet it's as robust as it knocks in its execution. So our execution is really powerful. So it's this combination of delicate yet powerful and potent and all that good stuff. So I hope that helps you, because I know like really diving into this and be able to talk it out with y'all has really helped me understand my authority much more, even though like I've been I learned about human design, I want to say 2 years ago, and again, I feel like I haven't been able to shift as quickly because I haven't had a sounding board. And in all these coaching spaces that I've been in, I haven't really felt held and seen and heard. And it's just something so moving and so transformational when you're in a space where you feel seen and heard and held. And I say this because like again with the coaching sessions that I've done, I get that feedback almost 100% of the time, where the person's like, you have this way of talking where your voice is really soothing, and I feel so heard and I feel so seen, and like it just feels really good. So I do want to put this out there. If you are a self-projected projector and you find that you don't have a sounding board, you're still in search of one, I do, because being a self-projected projector and knowing how important it is to have the right sounding board, I do my best to keep spaces open for self-projected projectors who just need that space to talk things out, because I know what it's like, I know what I need. I can provide that for you, and really just not tell you what to do. You already know what to do. It's just giving you that space to be able to tap into that inner knowing. So if you're a self-projected projector and you'd like space, if you're going through something or there's something on your mind, where you want to be seen, held, heard, guided with questions, not being told what to do, you can reach out and we can book a session or a time slot to help you navigate that. You can find me on Instagram. My handle is @JamieSalcedo, and there we can come up with a time for you to have that space. Okay, well, after all that talking, I feel better, so I'm going to, I don't know what I'm going to do. Oh, probably I could edit, I could go walk. I don't know. It's such a beautiful day. And after all that noise is finally done down, I'm like, oh, it feels so peaceful. Okay, that's it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. If there are any takeaways, if there's anything that you want to experiment with, if there's anything you want to share, my invitation, drop it down in the comments. Otherwise, as I mentioned, you can find me on Instagram @JamieSalcedo, and I'll see y'all in the next video. Y'all see my earrings? I got like this little French bulldog, I think that's the breed, on these hot pink flamingo floaties. Look how cute are they? I'm gonna wait for them to finish because I feel like I'm straining my voice. This is what happens like when you have no motor centers to your throat. It's a little bit better, but then I get started and they get all riled up again. So we're here with Meatballs. Meatball, come here. You want to say hello? Hi. More butt spray, like at this rate. I think I should totally get sponsored by Cutter or like any other mosquito repellent. Like, if it's natural and effective, even better. Because like mosquitoes. I'm grateful like fall is coming. Because like today, it's so delicious outside. Once the sun sets a little bit more, I'm gonna go on a walk. The plugs bit my face, y'all. Now they're blowing. Okay, it's almost over. God, please help these men finish their job quickly and efficiently so that I may continue with this and go inside and take a nap before I go on a walk. I've been up since like 9 in the morning and I had very little sleep, so there's that. I think they're done. Okay, I don't think it's as bad, but see, every time I say it, I don't think it's as bad. I feel like it gets even louder. I can't, y'all, like, I think it's like what do you call it, like a hedge trimmer, like, yeah, it's definitely the last stage of their process. I think it's over. It feels so peaceful now. Oh no. Oh!